Shalom, Boker Tov, Maslomcha. This one's about the rescheduling of cannabis announcement, which it hasn't gone through yet, but and hopefully it doesn't, of course. But this is interesting. So it's not organic. This is not naturally occurring. This is social engineering through social media. When I come to these conclusions, I try to find real life, offline things that confirm my online observations. So let's start with my offline observations. Excuse me. My new roommates, white Christians, they were big marijuana users, and the guy's story is that he started to see demons, and so he stopped smoking marijuana. But even though marijuana caused him to see demons, hallucinations, right? He still sold it for 2 years after he quit, at least because of the money. So apparently, the white man's weakness is also his strength, which is greed. The greed of the white Christians. All of just whiteness in general. That doesn't have much to do with his Christianity and more to do with his white people are just money. White people are better at generating income and managing resources and things like that. So the white man's greed is what created the European domination of the world for a few centuries. Anyway, so despite being so smart, they're so stupid at the same time. It's very interesting. For example, these allegedly conservative, allegedly Christian people are very liberal and very woke, but they think they're anti-liberal and anti-woke. That's the words they express, the sentences they say, they speak. For example, they're very anti-racist and colleges should put money into Africans learning their tribal history in Africa, is what the dumb woman said. And I responded, yeah, will that actually create any money or help the economy, or will it be a net negative and not a net positive? And she still was argumentative and bitchy, and then finally admitted, okay, yeah, it wouldn't produce any money. It'd be a waste of money, right? That would be a loss, not a gain. So I had to fight to her stupidity to get her to smarten up. And this is the same psychological factor that makes her susceptible to manipulation from TikTok. Now, they believe, or at least they say, that the reason the government wants to suppress TikTok is because they're giving us the real news that the mainstream media isn't showing. They're the fake news, and TikTok is the real news. That's fucking stupid. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard from the smart race of white people. Oh yeah, the real news is on TikTok. Nobody ever lies on TikTok. Nobody ever spreads misinformation or disinformation on social media, especially TikTok. If it's on TikTok, it must be true. And so they're easily programmed by TikTok. It's funny. And that's why they regurgitate the marijuana arguments that TikTok programmed them with, right? So the marijuana industry is run by the same elite billionaires, or is being pushed by the same elite billionaires who also control social media and use social media to control the goyim, the masses, the peasants, etc. Which goes into my offline observations. For example, jeez, when I scroll on 9gag, they are blacking my mind, right? Black guy, black people, black, black, black. Social engineering, increased diversity. But interestingly enough, these are the same people who push Ukrainian war propaganda. And let's just look at the stuff that I comment on. So we got Dave Chappelle, drug propaganda, of course, very big pushing marijuana, as well as diversity propaganda. This is posted as old versus gold. This guy tries to get his dick sucked publicly by a jogger, so it's pornography propaganda. It's soft pornography in a Doritos ad. More soft porn. This is just this morning. This was just in 5 minutes, right? Big boobs, cleavage. More soft porn. Porn propaganda. Um, Marijuana propaganda. Drug propaganda. Hunter S. Thompson with John Cusack and Johnny Depp. Drug propaganda. The lighter thief. Old white people dancing to rap. Rap is absolutely drug and porn propaganda, crime propaganda, and so forth and so on. And then I see German ambassador almost gets lynched in her mall, and I think, well, Germany did just legalize marijuana, and the only thing that's kept corrupt politicians honest throughout history is the public execution of corrupt politicians. So any politician that legalized marijuana should be publicly beaten by a mob to death. And that would maybe inspire the other politicians to not push things they know are destructive. Step one, get addicted to drugs, drug propaganda. Porn propaganda about vibrators. Porn propaganda. Drug, marijuana propaganda. South Park, of course. Porn propaganda and LGBTQ propaganda, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just keeps going and getting worse and worse. And this is the stuff your kids are looking at. Yeah, there's more and more and more. Anyway, and then I get on YouTube and I realize YouTube has also pushed a lot of marijuana, social engineering through social media. So all kinds of Americans, like my roommates, are so stupid they're just programmed by companies like Google and Meta. And I found that interesting. I'm going to do a video about this later that I'm actually going to put effort into, hopefully making like a nice, clean, organized video. But I was going to show good Jews and bad Jews, good Gentiles and bad Gentiles. Evil Jews will be Sarah Silverman, Seth Rogen, Chuck Schumer, and all the marijuana pushing Jews. And then I'll show Robert Bowers, who not only had a history of marijuana, but when I Googled his story back in, what was it, 2019 or 2018, I think, even 2020 and 2021, the marijuana came up. Not only Robert Bowers' marijuana use prior to committing the mass shooting of the Jews at the synagogue, but his accomplices were growing marijuana along with him, with Nazi flags in their grow room. So Darrell Brooks also smoked marijuana. White Christians pushing marijuana don't care about the white Christians that are murdered by the marijuana they pushed by people like Darrell Brooks, who specifically targeted white Christians. Jews like Sarah Silverman, Seth Rogen, Chuck Schumer, etc., who push marijuana, do not care about the Jews murdered by the cannabis they push. Literally, the cannabis policies, legalization, aggressive marketing, marijuana propaganda, all that stuff, directly caused the death of those Jews at the synagogue shooting. Now, there's other questions. Why is it that when Robert Bowers kills a bunch of Jews, it's a hate crime and it's federal death penalty, but when Darrell Brooks kills a bunch of white Christians, it's not federal, it's state, and it's not the death penalty. What? Oh, because it's feeding into the stereotypes that Jews do run everything, right? Yeah. Wow, way to disprove that one. But then I look at good Jews and good white Christians for Example. There's Jews who write for tablet.com, which has a Torah scroll icon, so I assume it's a Jewish organization, want to keep Jews safe, criminalize marijuana. And this Jewish woman discusses Sarah Halimi, who was murdered by an African Islamic migrant in cannabis-induced psychosis, and he got off from charges with cannabis-induced psychosis as legal defense. Annabelle something, good Jew. Was the Wakisha killer a stoner? Yes, yes, yes. Right. And then evil, so you get bad Jews, good Jews, bad whites slash Christians, and good whites slash Christians. So here's the evil and wicked Christians. They're pushing marijuana. The pro marijuana Christians, right? Yeah. I literally just Googled white Christians pro weed, and all kinds of white Christians were like, yeah, dude, Jesus wants you to do drugs, man, so that way I can make money. Just like the Jews that are pushing weed. It's about money. They don't give a shit about fucking other Jews, right? And then white Christians anti marijuana. Now, these are the good whites slash Christians. It's weird because you think there'd be atheist collectives and organizations against marijuana, given the secular science validates the harms of marijuana. There isn't. Why is that? Because just like the Christians, these atheists, particularly the white atheists, but even the non-white atheists, a Goyim, Jew, whatever, are susceptible to psychological manipulation through social media. But somehow this led me to a list of anti-cannabis organizations. And Fort Carson, Colorado, marijuana in any form is not allowed on the installation. Man, if I can move there. But the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Boston is anti-marijuana, according to Wikipedia. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's also an Israel anti-drug authority. I automatically wanted to donate money to them because for some reason my assumption is that the American anti-marijuana organizations are just controlled opposition, right? They're not going to effectively stop the weed. They're just going to take your money and pretend to fight it, but won't actually stop it because you can't really stop the globalists except with a bullet in the head. And so I don't know. The Israeli anti-drug authority could be corrupt, of course, but it's insane to me. But at the same time, I'm noticing my own selective, situational ethics, selective morality. When the opiate crisis hit, I wasn't bothered by it because there was no involuntary exposure. There was no forced drugging because the route of administration was oral through prescription pills or intravenous injection. So the chemical was mostly contained solely to the user's bloodstream, with few and very rare exceptions when someone would, experience involuntary exposure, do like surface, skin contact or something like that. Anyway, yeah. So for those who make the argument that prohibition increases consumption, this is a lie. Alcohol prohibition actually reduced alcohol consumption. The big argument against that was organized crime was created as a result of prohibition. There's other things that are prohibited in the United States that didn't increase under prohibition. You don't even know, most likely, they were prohibited. For example, haggis, the national dish of Scotland, according to the internet, was federally prohibited at one point. This didn't cause an increase in black market haggis sales. So the marijuana industry is not organic. It is socially engineered through social media, just like pornography, etc. And I wanted to do something tangible about this. I wanted to get a shotgun and, murder a politician in New Mexico. who lied and pushed the marijuana, even though his lies were proven to be lies at the Zoom town hall that the state had. Clearly, the corrupt elites are using politicians to implement agendas, regardless of what the people think or how the people feel. No matter who's in charge. Trump, Biden, whatever, doesn't matter. And I was excited for a second civil war back then. I no longer believed in Trump either. And that was about 2020. That was during COVID, when it was very clear the corruption in government and politics was unrestricted and unregulated, and the only thing that would hold these people accountable for passing policies that destroy the lives of innocent people and punish the wicked, or sorry, punish the righteous and reward the wicked, was a civil war, was violence. There's no political solution. Violence is inevitable. Unfortunately, the elites are smarter than that, and 20 steps ahead of people like me, the grunts, the lower class, and they use their monopoly on communication and smartphone technology to prevent uh, an effective resistance from stopping their agenda. Yeah, in that chess game, they are way ahead, and that's pretty fucked up. So I want to believe Yad Hashem, right? The hand of God at this point is the only thing that will stop them. Because even if I were to be lucky enough to get a gun and murder a corrupt politician whose policies have caused the deaths and rapes of children or other people, adults, etc., teenagers, youth, which really you could say that's hate speech and etc. But I would argue that if a politician passes a policy that causes the death of 5 people, or 10 people, or 50 people, or even 100 people, or 1,000, that politician should receive what they're willing to dole out. That seems only fair. But because they prevented an effective resistance, right? And you could say, oh, this is a hate speech or whatever, threatening terrorism. No. If there was an appeal to intellect, if there was an appeal to morality, if words were effective at stopping the corruption in government, then vigilantism wouldn't be justified, legitimized, or even considered as a potential option, because that's the option people consider when they have nothing else left to lose. So why isn't the government holding itself accountable instead of externalizing the cost and labor? Why should I have to suffer and be punished because of the greed of the elites? Why should my life be destroyed for them to thrive? Does that make sense? It does. So, what can I do, right? Pray to God that we get to see some more, like that German ambassador almost getting killed by the mob, that we get to see more actual politicians and elites being murdered by violent mobs for the heinous shit they've been doing to the people.